There are many things that we take for granted in our day-to-day life, and we really don't ever think about them until something goes wrong. What would you guys do without refrigeration? If you didn't have any refrigeration, it would put you into panic mode, wouldn't it?
Cold pantry, there's a place for all your foods, fresh and frozen, canned, bottled and wrapped, new bought and leftover.
Yes, these youngsters just got out of school and they're making a beeline to their favorite fountain. It's the automatic twin juice fountain in the 1955 Westinghouse refrigerator.
It's the most convenient refrigerator ever made. The Store Easy, See Easy, Reach Easy new Kelvinator for $57. The one automatic defrosting refrigerator that puts everything at your fingertips.
If you guys have been following us, you know what, and if you're not following us, why aren't you? Go ahead and subscribe right now and hit the bell for notification too. But if you've been following us, we have been doing a series, I'll say it's kind of a series, on what to do in an off-grid situation. I talked about, you know, how are you going to cook? What are you going to do without air conditioning? You know, things like that. The question that we get every single day, it's probably our top 2 or 3 questions that we've gotten asked in our whole entire time doing this, is what do we do for refrigeration? So I thought this would be a great video to go over the things that we have done, things that we implemented, things that we tried and worked, and things that didn't work, because there were a lot of things that didn't work and there's a lot of things that did work. So I'm going to go over a lot of these different things to maybe help you guys in your journey, just in case. Because when we did move out here, we looked back into history just to see what they did and all the different means that they took to preserve things and prevent them, cooling them down, preventing them from spoiling. And then this is what we found. In the beginning, the hunter-gatherers would go and forage for their foods. They would gather seeds, they'd gather nuts, they'd get greens. Right now I'm gathering some pine needles to make pine needle tea, since it's very high in vitamin C to make for a tea. But you know, if they were lucky, they would catch a rabbit or get some type of meat if they would go hunting. So they would forage. And Doug and I call that kind of hunter and gather, we call it FOD, food on demand. So here on our homestead, if we want a chicken, basically we just go out, we get our chicken, and that's what we're gonna have. So it works out good because, you know, in the beginning when we moved out here many, many years ago, we didn't have any refrigeration at all. And it was like, you know, I want a chicken, what am I gonna do? I don't have a freezer. Because a lot of people will get your fryers and you go ahead and you freeze them all. Well, what if you don't have access to that? You can still have them, just use them when you need them. Food on demand. A lot of you guys might think this is kind of silly or funny, but you want to know, a lot of this is really common sense. You know, just going out, we've been kind of conditioned to, you know, get our animal, raise our animals, and then you butcher them, and then you put them in the freezer. But really, you know, how have people done this for thousands of years? I mean, when you were hungry, you would go ahead and you would, you know, process your chicken or go out and get your dinner for the evening, and you would go ahead and fish or do whatever. And it really is kind of common sense, and we don't think about it because we have been doing it the other way, where you go to the store, then you have to freeze it for a while, you know, just for convenience purposes. But really, if you just kind of go back to how they used to do it, this is pretty simple and easy. Another way that, when actually we started doing this when we first moved down here, is if you find a stream, a running stream or a creek. Right now this area here is kind of drying up a little bit, but if you had an area that has running water, you need a container. Make sure that it has a lid on it. This is one of my Temcos. I love it. It's totally airtight. It's a Temco 20 gallon, but you know, anything, you could put a trash can or anything because you don't want any rodents or anything getting into, you know, what you have in here. You can put your things you want to keep cool, if you had any cheeses, you know, whatever you need to keep cool, and then you would just set it in the water. Just so, and then the running water will help keep it cooler. So that's another option too. Now the next way you guys can keep your things cool is to kind of make a mini root cellar. Because Doug and I really wanted a root cellar, but when we first moved out here, you know, we didn't have a root cellar, we didn't have really any way to keep our things cool. So what we did was we dug a hole in the ground, the big as like a trash can like this, and we put it inside of the hole. And we wanted to make sure that there was enough room on the bottom and on the sides that we were able to insulate it. Now you can insulate it with a few things. You could go ahead and get some straw, some wood shavings, or like sand, because those are all good insulators. So when you dig the hole in the bottom, you want to put a little bit of that sand or the straw, and all throughout the sides. Pack it in there really good, and then you want to put it into the hole just to the very top, because you want to make sure you're able to take the top off. And then inside it, you can put all your things you want to keep cool, just like that. And then over the top, you know, you can put a board or a big blanket, like a, you know, anything like that, just so it'll keep it cool. And then that way it's in the ground, and the ground will kind of be its like thermal regulator and kind of help with it when you want to keep things cool. So there's another option, mini root cellar. Now, we worked up to a bigger root cellar, so let's go look at that. So now this is our root cellar that we have now. It's made out of insulated concrete foam, an ICF. And actually, I still have some of my squash, my Rampa Conti squash from last year down here. I store all my stuff that I need. We're in the process of remodeling and moving things around in here, getting ready for all the harvest this coming summer. But your root cellar, if you're going to think about making one or getting one, you want to be at least 10 feet into the ground. This root cellar stays between 40 and 50 degrees, which is a perfect, kind of like it's my walk-in refrigerator. And I love it because I can keep everything down here. And actually in the summer months when it's boiling hot, if you guys didn't see my video I did talking about air conditioning, I think it was the last one that I did, this is a great place to come down and cool off. I know our dog Molly, we come and open the door and she bolts down here and she'll come and just lay down and go splat on the ground and hang out here. So it's a really cool place. It's sort of like our little air conditioned building. And it keeps all my stuff nice and cool. Now, this brings us to the way we use refrigeration for many years, because when we moved down here, we emulated what the Amish did to use as their refrigerators. And what they would do is they would get these old chest freezers, but they would be ones that weren't working any longer. So they didn't have access to electricity. They were just a box, a nice insulated box. And the good thing about a chest freezer, so if you had to choose between like an upright freezer and a chest freezer, the chest freezers are going to be much more efficient, because when you open it, because you know that saying, heat rises and the cool air falls, when you open it, the coolness is going to stay down. If you have like an upright freezer and you open it, the cold air just comes out at you. So this is much more efficient. So what we would do is you get these 5-gallon buckets and you would fill them with water and you would freeze them. So the Amish have a place, either a neighbor that they use their freezer and then they freeze buckets in, or there's also a person who has an ice house where they have a few freezers in their barn, and then they'll freeze them and they charge you, you know, $4 or so for a bucket, and then you get the ice. Since it's a solid chunk of ice and you keep it in this bucket, then we would get them and then you just put them inside. So you put your bucket inside, and then usually there's these, you know, little baskets or whatever in there, and you can put your food in there. You can put food at the bottom, food up at the top, and it stores a lot. Actually, it holds quite a bit. And then the solid chunk of ice would last a very long time. Usually over this, I would cover it with a quilt to help insulate it a little bit more. And then we started off in the barn. We're in the barn right now. I kept it in the barn, but it got pretty warm in the summers, so I ended up bringing it into the house. And we did it this way for many, many years. Unfortunately, over the time, you know, your ice is melting, the bottom is getting wet. I was leaning forward a lot, you're cleaning it out. It kind of got to be, you know, it got old kind of quick. But this is a good option for a lot of you guys if you are wanting some type of off-grid type refrigerator. The thing you have to do is get ice.
Keeping our eye out, and you know, we're always trying to willing to try new things. So what we did run across at the resale shop the other day was this ice box from the 1800s. It's a late 1800s, early 1900s ice box. It's called a thermos, and they built them in Wisconsin. All original material. It has the brass hinges and door latches, and it's metal. On this side here, as you can see, it just opens up. It's like any other fridge. It's about 43 degrees in here. On the other side is where we keep the ice. That's a bucket of ice. We just put it in yesterday. It's still plenty cold. You know, we got to kind of think outside the box. No pun intended. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a slave to the system, you know. So this is our 1800s ice box. Works just fabulously, just like anybody else's ice box.
Moving right along. So the next thing I want to show you, I'm in my outside kitchen right now, and we just got this propane refrigerator a few years ago, and it was a game changer. I can't tell you guys, it was amazing. Basically, this is a propane refrigerator. It's run on a propane tank like you put your gas grill on, one of those smaller ones. And what I like about it is also it's a three-way, so you can do it on a propane gas, or you can do it on a 110 12 volt. So, or you can actually have a plug-in if you have electric. So you can do it anyway. So if you were going on a trip, or you had a car battery, or you have a propane, it would work that way. The one thing I guess I would say against it is you can't put it in your house since it's on propane. It needs to be outside. It needs some airflow. So I have it in the outside kitchen. And this thing is great. Let me show you. So basically, you know, you can keep your things. There's plenty of room to put things in the door. You have things here. You can put your drinks. It even has a little freezer. The only thing that it does not do well is when it's very, very cold outside. So in the middle of winter, when it's freezing cold, it might be, you know, 0 degrees, 10 degrees. Things inside of it will freeze. So I don't use this refrigerator when it's the very cold months of winter. Because it's cold, I have a whole outside area that you can use as your refrigerator. I use our back room, kind of where the seam of the door is, and I'll set my things back there. So if I have some cheese or if I have some drinks, I'll set it there. If we have snow, I'll put it in the snow as an insulator. I use it that way also. So sometimes we got to think outside the box and use what we got. And I want to say something really quick about this, the company. You know, we had a piece in there that broke. They're really easy to work with. They just sent it to us. They were so wonderful. And I like companies like that they stand behind their product, and they're really easy to work with, and they have a very wonderful, highly rated product, and I can't say enough about it. So I really like this product. So now let's talk about one thing that probably anybody can do, which is simple and easy, and I did this for a couple years too, is to use a cooler. Now this great big cooler, I know a lot of you guys have seen these really big ones. I really liked this cooler a lot because there was an area that right now I have dirt in here. So you can open it this way, you can open the whole way, and what worked out good with this is I actually got some old, you know, refrigerator shelves that I stuck in there so that I was able to put my ice at the bottom, then I had a shelf, and then I could put all my things in here, and it worked out great. So I would use this, I kept this in the outside kitchen, and I use this as my refrigerator for a long time, and it worked out great. Now they have the Yetis. You know, if you guys have a Yeti, they're extra thermal insulated, and they work very well. If you're putting some ice in there, they will last a lot longer, especially if you put like a harder block of ice. I know a lot of people will freeze the water bottles. That works amazingly that you can put in there. But the coolers are excellent, and I know a lot of people will also get a cooler. You know, you can get a big one, a couple small ones, and then you have a box, and you can get that insulation. A lot of people will even use that, you know, like the foam insulation, or they even have that insulation that they use for garage doors, and that might be the outside part, and then you can set the cooler in there, and then that way you're getting extra insulation that'll keep it for a longer amount of time. Now, the Amish around here, they have something called an ice house. And I know a lot of them will use the outside of, you know, what we use for the insulation for a garage door. So it has like the outer, like, I guess siding, and then it has that foam. And then inside it, you know, they have a nice locking door, and they will cut ice out of the pond. So in the winter months, when it gets cold enough and the ice is, you know, a few inches thick, then they'll cut it out and they fill the whole thing with ice. It is packed so tightly with ice, it will make it from winter, let's say January or February, all the way through the year. And then that way they can have nice, cool things all throughout the summer months. So you guys need to think about how to learn how to do water bath canning or pressure canning, learn about how to cure or salt your meats, things like that. Learn how to ferment. Watch some of my fermenting videos, or get my new fermenting cookbook that has over 100 recipes. Go to offgridwithdougandstacy.com and you can check that out. It's going to the printer right now. And learn some of these, you know, techniques so that you can preserve a lot of your food. So this stuff that you're growing, or maybe you're getting at the farmer's market, or, you know, from community supported agriculture, if you're part of one of those, you're able to preserve your foods, and then that way it will be shelf stable. You could keep it in a cool place, and then that way you'll be able to use those foods to get from one season to the next. Get some books, start learning, start teaching yourself. This summer is your summer to really educate yourself and empower yourself in some of these techniques that we have lost from just a couple generations. We all may need to come back to start doing these things once again. So empower yourself. Try to get some of these things, be ready. You never know what's gonna happen. Always be prepared. And I can't wait to see you on the next video. Have a great one. See you later.